Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, the place for internet technology professionals whose work-life balance plan has imploded. We are here to provide solutions that will help the IT pro live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hi, this is Joanne Victoria with another recording of the Sanity Project podcast. I am the host of the podcast, and this is for experts in the personal development and IT communities to share their wisdom, expertise, and solutions that will help the IT pro live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. And as a reminder, when I say IT pro, I mean employees, contractors, executives, and those looking to leave the business. Our guest today is Johnny Campbell, also known as the Transition Man. Johnny Campbell is the author of Becoming the Agent of Change, How to Get People to Embrace Change Without Losing Your Mind or Your Bank Account, and Awaken to Your True Calling, how to awaken to your true purpose and finally start living your best life. Johnny Campbell is a keynote speaker and author who helps people turn their personal challenges into breakthroughs and their products and services into profits. Johnny is past president of the National Speakers Association for the state of Illinois and is an accredited speaker, a designation awarded by Toastmaster International and held by only 81 professional speakers in the world for excellence in public speaking. Johnny's expertise was gained in the insurance industry when he helped lead hundreds of people through multiple corporate downsizing and mergers. Based on Johnny's results at helping organizations overcome their challenges and succeed, he is called the Transition Man. If you're listening to this, his best website address is riseupandwin.com. That's riseupandwin.com, and I think it's a stunning address. You can reach him at johnny@transitionman.com, and if you're reading this on the website, you can see all of his social links. What Johnny is going to help you, the audience, with today is how to embrace change, which we have all the time. How to embrace change and start living your life. Welcome to the show, Johnny Campbell, the Transition Man. Welcome.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm just happy to be here and ready to help.
Well, I thank you. I think that change is a constant. I think people like to see things stay the same. They want to live in the same place, stay with the same people, work the same job forever, which is kind of a joke today, but do things in the same way day in and day out. And then some of them may wonder why things are not successful in their life any longer. How can you help them?
Well, one of the things when it comes to this idea of change, one of the things that I think starts the process of becoming more embracive of it is the language that we choose. And a lot of people do not like change. And I simply tell them, you are correct. You shouldn't like change because that's not what you actually do. Things change, objects change, events change. People don't change. Either they get better or they get worse in life. Change is an event, a situation, or a thing. But people make transitions through change. So we're really in the business of improving ourselves by making transitions to and through the situations that we are facing. So a lot of times the first stalemate or the first thing that holds people up is the language. So what I realized, and I had worked with hundreds of people within the insurance industry, and I began to talk to them about how we were going to deal with this new merger and acquisition and how we were going to deal with all the changes. And I said, first thing is the language. We're not changing, we're making a transition. And I'm going to be your transition man and guide you through the process. And even when we started saying the word transition over change, that reduced stress and made people feel better. So I soon realized that transition is really the key to starting people down a process of getting through the change. And once I understood that I'm going to guide people through a transitional process, it made it a lot easier for me to help people deal with it. And so I got really clear on where are we starting? We're going to go through this change. And I got really clear at showing people what I call the promised land vision. See, a lot of organizations have a vision and a mission statement, but they don't have a promised land vision.
What do you, I'm sorry to interrupt, what do you mean by a promised land vision? You were probably going to explain it to me, but I interrupted.
That's all right. A promised land vision is what it's really supposed to look like. How are you supposed to feel? Who are we supposed to be at the end of this thing? What is supposed to have happened to us because we made it to the very end? A lot of times people have a vision of success, but they're not clear on how am I supposed to feel when this is over? What is supposed to have happened to me when we're through it? And what will we have achieved when we finally reach the very end? See, great leaders offer a promised land vision of what is supposed to happen. And what that does, that actually inspires people because they can see themselves in that. A lot of times when leaders describe visions, they don't describe the people in the vision. They just say, here's the vision for the organization, but they don't describe the people, how they're going to be, what they'll be doing, how they will be feeling, what will be happening. They don't describe it in enough detail to cause the people to emotionally anchor to the vision. And so I got really good at describing that to people because I knew we were going to go through some difficulties, some struggles, some setbacks and failures, because that's all a part of when you are improving. And when you're going through something, these are the things that will occur. And so I got very clear on the promised land vision based on the things that I knew we were going to have to go through. I said, we're going to have to endure certain things to get to the very end, but this is what's going to happen at the end. And so for me, those are the key things that I start to really talk to leaders about. It's like, if you're going to really help people embrace change, work on the language, meaning choose better words that don't invoke a resistance. See, when you say change, think about people's values and beliefs around change. Their values and beliefs, there's a conflict in most people because people don't want to change. So their values and beliefs can be resistant to change. But when you say we're going to do a transition, their values and beliefs don't kick in and resist. Their values and beliefs say, what are you talking about?
Right. Okay.
And I even have audiences say it out loud, Joanne. I'll say the word change, then I'll say the word transition. Say the word change, then say the word transition. Which one sounds better? And they'll say transition. Because I'll say, because that's what you were designed to do in this life. Make transitions to and through situations. You were never built to change. You were made to make a transition.
It's a much happier word. Much happier word, and it releases any stress that your audience of whatever might feel, because change is like, oh God, what do I have to do with myself now? And then, as you're saying, change happens outside of self. And then when you say transition, well, that's fine. That's doable. I can see that because they connect the transition with travel and transit and moving, so that there's some subconscious stuff that comes up that makes them feel good about the word.
Exactly. See, when you say change, people think I'm going to have to give up and let go. But when they think of transitioning, they think about I'm going to gain and receive something by my movement, by me moving through this. So they have more of a feeling of gain when they hear that word in conjunction with whatever we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas change sounds more like I'm going to have to give up, let go, release something that I don't want to release, which happens many times in corporate America. We had it many times where we had technologies, and I was there to help the individuals learn the new technology, but we still had access to the old technology. So anytime they saw the new technology, they immediately ran back and started using the old system. And then finally, we had to just cut off the old system. But before we cut it off, I showed them and began to help them see how much more they would gain from the newer technology within the new organization after the merger and acquisition occurred. But it's tough because change, people have to let go and they just resist.
Yeah, that's yes. It starts at day one or day hour zero of when we're born. Changing is not a good thing for people, and I'm surprised I haven't even looked at it the way you present it to the world is that you don't change, things outside of you change. And it's like so clear and, so clear that this is how it works. And when you say transition, that makes it easy. So you've got clarity and ease of transaction or whatever. And that, it's like a whole new language for people.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it starts. Once you use new language on people about a situation, they become open to it. They're not ready to totally get involved, but they're open to what you're talking about. And they're actually listening to you as you describe what is about to happen. That's why through my own studies, I just came to that realization. I said, change is really just an event, a situation, or a thing. Light bulbs. You change a light bulb. You change a car tire. You change objects. They're not better or worse. They just change. That's all. You just change them in and out. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's not people. We either get better or worse from experiences. We are never the same after an experience happens. We're either better or worse. So the goal is to improve people. And the only way to improve them is to help them make a transition through that situation that they're dealing with.
Well, I hope our listeners are paying attention to the details, but I always remind them, no matter what's going on, always re-listen to whatever podcast turned you on. So if you think you're missing something in between the language that Johnny Campbell is presenting to you, when this finishes, we still have some time to go re-listen to this. And send a copy of this podcast episode to your superior, to your supervisors, to your project managers, to all of your executives, your leads, your EVPs, AVPs, whatever it might be, so that they hear how you are hearing this. So they hear how you can more easily help them the next time you're merging with the 15th company that comes along that your global corporation is purchasing. Because that's the fear that comes into people when there are mergers and acquisitions, is they think, now I have to be different because this new group of people is coming in. And of course, a lot of people are laid off on both sides, and there's always that mishigas going on. But how can you accept this, not a change, but a transition? How can you work with these people? So how can they work with people? For example, I'm sure you've done this, and if you haven't, we can move on to something else. But how do companies who acquire or merge with another company, how do they handle their employees, and how do they handle their own feelings about these changes within their own company?
Well, one of the things that whenever this process begins, the company has a vision for, like we said before, where it's trying to go. But to get people on board, it has to be a personal situation. In other words, managers and leaders, they need to talk to the staff and the people on a one-on-one basis and help them understand where they fit in this process. See, when people feel like they're a part of the process, then they're willing to transition through the process more effectively. When people don't feel like they're involved or that they have a say, and that was one big thing that I was very involved with when I was doing this. We would have meetings, and I would make sure I had small group meetings, and I would talk to individuals and find out how they felt about it, and also ask them the most powerful question: what part of this can you contribute to? Do you feel a part of what we're doing? And when they would say, well, I don't really feel a part of any of it, that's when I knew there would be resistance. See, when people are actually involved in the transition of the organization at the function levels, in other words, this is the day-to-day, they have to be involved, and they have to be also a stakeholder in the transitional process. They have to know that what they do matters to the result. If they don't think that what they're doing has any effect on whether it wins or loses, they'll do nothing. And then they'll become a part of the problem. So that's one of the biggest things that I would tell any manager. You got to meet with your individuals one-on-one and find out how they feel about it, what are their thoughts. And then also, when a company is going through a big merger, I know they're thinking global, but they also need to think micro. You have a lot of frontline soldiers that have to deal with this on a day-to-day basis with the customer, both internal or external. Let them give you feedback on what is happening on the front line. You're looking at it from a very strategic position, but let your frontline soldiers tell you what is happening to them and make the necessary adjustments based on what's happening from the front line, not just from the backfield where you are looking, but get them involved in those decisions so that when you make the bigger decision, it's a much more strategic decision and it's much more effective.
Well, I'm going to ask a silly question. Why aren't more companies doing this? Why don't more people hiring you? I mean, to me, this goes without question that you have a solution because there is an inordinate amount of resistance on the front line because, excuse me, they're not made to be a part of the conversation on any level. They just have to, move their chair to the left or the right and allow somebody else or a number of somebody else's to bring their chairs in, but nobody talks to anybody. Nobody says to the contractor or the employee, this is what's going on and this is how I can help you and this is how we can help each other. They just say, handle it.
Right. Here's one thought. Here's a thought about it that I have talked to groups about, and I've even consulted to some degree on this. I said there are 3 people that need to be involved when you are trying to make a transition in a company. You have what I call the commander of change. This is your leader of the organization. They look like it, they walk like it, they even smell like the future. That's their job because that's what they need to be doing. Then you have a manager of change. This one is kind of the keeper of the law and the policies and procedures as you go through. Most companies have a commander of change and a manager, but they don't have someone like me, an agent of change. See, I'm a third party that comes in that the people will talk to. Most people are afraid to talk to their manager and tell them the truth because of the consequences of being negative or being thought of in a dysfunctional way. You need someone to come in from outside who is able to have those conversations with the people. And then that person, that agent of change, reports back to the manager and the commander and tells it like it is to them. And they have to make the adjustments. But usually when a company sends their own people to talk to their own people, it's always very political, Joanne, so to speak. It's very political.
Yes.
No one's telling the truth. But when you have a third party, that's why being a speaker and a consultant and things work for me so well and are so powerful because I can get to the bottom of something that they can't get to. And I have no consequence. I'm not getting promoted in their company. They hired me to come in and find the answers out. So people will just tell me, because they know, hey, I'm going to tell this guy and he can go back and tell him. And
right.
They can't fire him. They can't do nothing to him, but he can go and tell the truth of what is happening. That's really what the missing link is. So that's why I always tell everybody when you're going through these big things, you do need outside people to come in and help facilitate the process.
So you provide a safe space for the people who feel left out of the party.
Right.
They're not invited to the party. They're just invited to observe the party. And they can't participate and they can't talk to their boss or or the big boss, as you say, the commander of change and the manager of change. And that's actually the way it happens. There is a commander and then there is the manager. People listening, you know who you are and you know how it has affected you. And so when you or someone like you, but when you show up, you give them alternatives, as you say, you have the conversation with the frontline people and they feel safe. And that I think is important because people don't feel safe enough anymore. I don't think they have for a long time. Nobody, there's no long-term jobs. Nobody's loyal to anybody else. It's very rare. I think independent people such as yourself and myself and our ilk feel safer than most because we carve our own path. But
Right.
when you work for a corporation, you don't carve your own path. You can try, but you can't get in. So when you show up and they just go, somebody I can talk to, as you said,
Yeah.
somebody who can remove the burden from me and collect my information and whoever else is hanging out around me and bring it to the honchos. And then as long as they've hired you, then they know that the honchos will listen to you.
Exactly. That's the key right there. See, when I was doing that, when I was working in corporate America, I was, just like anyone else. I worked in the insurance industry. I had sold insurance, but then I started working for corporations and I was in the claims department. So I was in the claims department. Then I became a trainer in the department. And I remember a manager, an upper level manager came to me and he was like, we want you, Johnny, to do something like, and this was kind of my first 007 case.
Mm-hmm.
We want you to try to really understand what the employees are going to need in order to help us get through this transitional period here, this big merger. But we're going to promote you to a high enough rank that everyone has to listen to you, but you're in charge of no one.
Mm-hmm.
So that you can walk amongst the people unafraid and you can say whatever you want to say and no one will touch you because upper management, like an agent, you are commissioned by us to find out what the truth is, and everyone felt comfortable talking to me because they said, Johnny he's not a manager, therefore he can't go back and report on me, but he's here to help us. But they had to empower me with that. And I realized later on there's not a lot of companies and organizations that are interested in having a person on staff like that, but they love bringing in someone like that to their organization. And that's where I found my home, was as a speaker on this topic, but also being hired to come in and do this kind of work so that they can really get some true answers as they go through the process.
That was a gift for both sides.
Yeah.
It started you flying and it helped them. So, and of course, the employees, of course, but I'm looking at, corporate was smart enough to do that and it helped you fly as high as you can.
It helped me fly, but it was just like in the movies. I'm the agent. I've been hired. I've been given this commission above. And then the one that gave me the commission above, they fired him.
Oh.
They ended up firing him. And then I was a rogue agent, and then I kind of fell back in to the regular part of the organization. And then finally, after the merger was over, they eliminated that position I was in and I was gone.
Well, that's because they changed personality. So,
right.
And you wouldn't want to have stayed anyway.
Right. I wouldn't have wanted to stay, but it was this guy was special. He saw something that most didn't see in how to get things done. And he truly was what I call a linchpin in my own life because it set me on this path to the work I've been doing for the last 20 years. Had he not commissioned me like that to do that, I don't know if I'd be here talking to you today, but he did. And it allowed me to see the world in a whole new way that's allowed me to serve people in a much more impactful and productive and profitable way.
Yeah, that was a gift from God that you both received. That's the way I'm looking at it. It was time. It was the time for you to get that. So
yeah. This
is just great, and it's a gift that you bring to your clients and all of the people that work for them. And however you present yourself as a speaker, coach, consultant. I hate the labels myself, but
right.
It's like, what are these labels? It's like I resist labels. If people call me Victoria, I say thank you. If people call me Joanne, I say thank you. Just write the check to the right name. But, but it's are you a coach or are you a consultant? Well, if they need training on the distinction, I'll give it to them.
Right.
So how would you suggest that today's employee and contractors, since where I live, which is near Seattle, actually anywhere in the world, contractors are more than 50% of the workforce of most global companies. How would you help them today? What could you tell them to do? Would you tell them to ask for somebody neutral to talk to? Because they do have lots of problems because there's so many people. You know, hundreds of thousands of employees worldwide in many of these corporations. And they don't have, anybody they talk to is trying to cover their own butt and save their own job. And if they're on a path to, if the exec is on a path to, getting more promotions and so on and so forth, they're very conscious of themselves and how they appear to the company and to corporate as opposed to their underlings. So who does what, I mean.
Well, I would say this, for someone that's in leadership, if you're trying, like we'll say you're in middle management and you're trying to move up in the world, one of the biggest strategies that a person can do is to understand what is really, if you can, what is really driving the leadership's mission. What is driving them to do this? And show them how talking to the people, how connecting with the people, having someone come in and work with the people really does contribute to the bottom line, and show leadership the ROI of that. Like, what will happen to us if we're just more productive? In other words, we get through the process faster because we have someone come in and work with us. If we're getting through the process faster, that means we're serving more customers quicker, which means we're creating more revenue opportunities a lot faster. So someone in the middle has to think about what is leadership's overall goal, what's driving them, and then anchor that goal to why you need somebody from the outside to come in to assist in that process. If you are a contractor and you notice that things are going on, and once again, it always goes back to what is the interest of the people you're dealing with. If I'm a contractor, I want to speak to that person's bottom line goals and results. What are their key performance indicators? What are they measuring? And show them how having someone help in this area helps you achieve your bottom line results. So those are the two things that I would just make sure I anchor it to that. I wouldn't just say like, oh, we need someone to come in and help us because change is hard.
Sure.
That's not going to work. You're going to need to anchor it and say, hey, we need someone to come in and help us because it will allow us to be more profitable in this area that we're focused on. And the moment leadership hears those kind of trigger words, they become a lot more open to what you are proposing. And then finally, when you go to leadership, go with a plan, not just a suggestion. Tell them the plan, because a lot of times they don't have a plan. So tell them what your plan is. And if they like the way you're describing it and you're taking ownership of it, it's a lot easier for them to be wanting to green light it or approve it or at least run a test on it. But if you just come in there with an idea, that sometimes is not enough for most leaders to take the risk.
Right. Yeah, they don't want to have to fill in their own blanks.
Right, exactly. They want a plan. If you come with a plan and they don't take it, that's so be it. That's their decision. But walk in there with a plan on how you would execute upon this if they gave you the authority to do it.
There you go. Well, everyone, as I said midway through this podcast interview, is re-listen to this. There is so much information in Johnny Campbell's words today that you shouldn't miss anything. And if you just Google Transition Man, you'll find him in various areas. But right now you can get him by email at johnny@transitionman.com and his website address, which is riseupandwin.com. And remember, he is the author of Becoming the Agent of Change, How to Get People to Embrace Change Without Losing Your Mind or Bank Account. You can't ask for anything better than that. I'm grateful you were here today, Johnny, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to be with you, Joanne.
Thank you. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com and continue the conversation on my podcast page. And get a free copy of my book, The True Self Handbook, a guide to transform your life. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.